During the college entrance exam, a classmate suddenly went mad and started biting others. I desperately fled the exam room, but instantly saw my best friend being mauled on the ground by a monster. And in the end, I couldn't escape the monster's clutches either, falling beside my best friend. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the exam room. I looked around at the classmates focused on their test and ignored the invigilator's questions. I desperately rushed out of the classroom, and then I saw my best friend running down the hallway towards me. When she saw me, her eyes were full of despair and fear. At that moment, I knew we had both been reborn, back to before everything began. 1 hour before the apocalypse, we went to the dorm we had rented nearby. The moment we shut the door, he hugged me tightly, tears streaming down. I was trembling all over, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. Xiaobai, I forced myself to calm down and quickly pack up. We're leaving here. I gritted my teeth and suppressed my shaking, grabbed a suitcase, and began packing our limited water and food. Since heaven gave us a second chance, you must hold on to it tightly. Xiaobai's eyes were no longer filled with fear and confusion. He wiped away his tears with the back of his hand and nodded firmly at me. Pee-pee, this time we must survive to the end. Under such intense pressure, it only took us 20 minutes. From escaping the exam room to being fully prepared, I took a baseball bat for self-defense. Xiaobai picked up an iron shovel used for gardening. At that moment, there were only 30 minutes left until doomsday. I called my mom, hoping she could leave work immediately. She's a biology PhD, working at a nearby biological research institute. But just as the call connected, she hung up on the other end. I froze. Speechless fear spread through my body. Xiaobai hesitated for a moment, then comforted me, saying, Auntie is probably at work, in the biolab. They're observing many things over there. She'd definitely be fine. But my mom would never answer, and then hang up. I was on the verge of breaking down. Pee-pee, listen to me. Xiaobai interrupted me. He grabbed my shoulders. No matter what happens, you have to survive, only then can you possibly save Auntie. I forced myself to calm down. I knew very clearly that surviving was the most important thing now. But when I had a brief moment to breathe and think about things I hadn't had time to in my previous life, I still couldn't help but feel despair. Let's go, I said through gritted teeth. Let's go to my house. When we reached the entrance of my neighborhood, we found the security guard standing stiffly with his back to us. We finally reached my home safely. Only 5 minutes left before the apocalypse. I could even hear the pounding of our hearts in the silence. Just as I opened the door, a piercing scream from Xiaobai suddenly rang out. I turned and saw the door being pushed open. A ferocious face appeared right in front of my eyes. I was immediately knocked to the ground. A strong stench of rot rushed up my nose like a tidal wave. The guard roared continuously, my surging adrenaline at that moment let me press hard against his throat. But the gap in strength was just too much, as a drop of putrid liquid dripped onto my face. The guard's horrifying face drew closer and closer. I shouted my best friend's name with all my strength, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw him running in the opposite direction. A deep despair instantly overwhelmed me. Yes, we were just friends. Why would he risk his life to save me? My heart sank into darkness. The strength in my hands faded. A few droplets splashed across my face. I saw the guard fall stiffly to the ground, and Xiaobai gripping the iron shovel tightly. Breathing heavily, he shouted, "Get inside, there's no time." The moment we shut the door, we both collapsed to the ground. After catching our breath, Xiaobai finally said, "I'm not strong enough." If I didn't get a running start, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to kill him in one blow. "Thank you, Xiaobai." I threw myself into his arms. "I almost thought you had given up on me." "What are you thinking?" "Idiot," he knocked lightly on my head. "We were blessed. We were reborn together. Even if we die together." I was just about to say something, but Xiaobai's eyes shifted behind me. His expression gradually became solemn. I heard his trembling voice. My heart felt instantly devoured. I turned around and saw a sight I would never forget in this life. Red, terrifying clouds rolling across the sky. I saw no humans, only panic in their place. Despair standing firm and wild, irrational screams. The apocalypse had truly arrived. After calming ourselves down, the first thing we had to do was to check the safety of the house. To my surprise, the windows at home were thick. The bulletproof glass doors had been replaced with solid steel. That gave me a great sense of relief. You don't seem very familiar with your own home, Xiaobai said casually as he inspected everything. This is a new house my mom bought 3 months ago. I've been living away from home. In these 3 months, I've only been back 5 times. Let's not talk about that now. Let's search and see if we have any food. If we don't eat, we'll starve to death. Xiaobai seriously began checking the rooms. He opened the first door and cried out in surprise. I stood with him in front of the room, and we quietly stared inside. Inside were rows and rows of shelves. The shelves were stocked with long-lasting foods. Rice, compressed biscuits, and much more. I did a rough estimate of the food stored there. The more I looked, the more excited I became. If nothing goes wrong with these supplies, they could support us for at least 2 years. If possible, enough to sustain us until order returns to this world. As we continued our exploration, Xiaobai and I discovered more surprises, such as a large number of various short-growth cycle vegetable seeds. Another room was filled with medical supplies, sanitary pads, toilet paper, and daily medical consumables. Although most of it isn't needed yet, they will absolutely be vital later on in bedrooms and western sectors. There was even a power generator, but to avoid drawing attention, Xiaobai and I agreed that the solar panels would be enough for daily use, and the generator would only be used when necessary. Besides that, all other imaginable and unimaginable living and production supplies were fully stocked. The more I saw, the more shocked I became. This didn't seem like a normal household at all. The scale of the supplies, it was as if it had been prepared in advance for the apocalypse. As if it was made by someone who knew this day would come. A doomsday, safe house. A chill slowly crept into my heart. For the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own home. To be precise, I felt like a stranger to my own mother. Mum, ... what exactly have you been doing? I couldn't help picking up the phone and dialed that familiar number. Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off. Please try again later. Still the same cold mechanical voice. I calmly put down the phone. Since you had already prepared for the apocalypse, then you must be somewhere safe now. Xiaobai and I went to the study and found a USB drive on the desk. Underneath it was a note. If before December 14th, the words after that were scribbled out messily. No matter how I looked, I couldn't make out what it originally said. Besides, isn't today December 14th? My worry for Mom grew even deeper. Just below that was another line. The data in the USB drive must be handed to Zhengling. The name felt strangely familiar to me. But the more I thought about it, the more distant it felt. Everything about my home was too unusual. Even though I said nothing, Xiaobai probably guessed some things. But he didn't ask. He just took my hand. We'll do our best. I plugged the USB into the laptop. The files inside were huge. When I clicked one open, it took a long time to load. The computer lagged for a moment, the screen filled with dense English text, and rows upon rows of data tables. Suddenly there was a loud bang. The screen went black. The computer exploded. Xiaobai tried to fix it but was completely lost. As if the computer had a program that triggered self-destruction, just as I was about to speak. A sudden dog bark rang out from outside the window. Someone's coming. Xiaobai and I froze immediately. We quietly moved toward the source of the sound. For safety reasons, we had already pulled all the curtains when we were inspecting the house earlier. Now we crouched quietly by the window, lifting a small gap in the curtain, and closely watched the scene outside. The sound came from the backyard. Although the courtyard wall was tall, from the second floor's angle, We had a clear view beyond the wall. A large dog had pinned a zombie missing an arm to the ground. Another man, fully armed, held a weapon in his hand and struck forcefully, aimed straight at the zombie's neck. After it was over, he looked around cautiously. His gaze swept across the second floor where we were. Xiaobai and I didn't even dare to breathe. It seemed like after confirming there was no danger, he raised his hand and waved. The dog joyfully leapt up beside him. Panting, the dog followed behind him. They left. Xiaobai and I exchanged glances. Both of us let out a sigh of relief. In the apocalypse, the scariest thing isn't the zombies. It's people. My home isn't exactly safe. I frowned. Someone could show up here at any time. If our supplies are discovered, the consequences would be unimaginable. Xiaobai nodded. We need to prepare a backup plan in advance. Leave ourselves an escape route if necessary. We may even need to learn how to fight zombies ourselves. Just then, a sudden bell startled both of us. We jumped in shock. When we realized what it was, I rushed to check the surveillance. Sure enough, on the main gate camera screen, I saw the figure of the same man from before. Is he crazy? What if before I could finish my sentence? The man's voice suddenly came through the intercom. Clear and loud. You're Professor Chun's daughter, right? Open the door, I'm his student. Xiaobai and I both grabbed our stun batons and cautiously watched his every move after entering. Relax, he said. I showed you my ID just now, didn't I? Put down the stun batons. Xiaobai held my hand and asked him, where did you come from? It should be really dangerous out there now. I'm Professor Chun's student, he said. He called me yesterday specifically, told me to stay home and go to his place when the time came. Oh right, he added. My home is nearby. As he spoke, he stroked his chin. At first I didn't know what when the time comes meant. But now it's clear, he must have meant the zombie outbreak. So I have no idea about Professor Chun's current situation. I lowered my eyes in disappointment. Professor Chun probably had something important to tell me. I didn't answer. I simply looked up and stared at him. You're my mom's student. And you seriously know nothing about today? You killed those zombies without even flinching. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Ever played Resident Evil? I can tell you clearly. I didn't know anything, but I suspect this is definitely related to Professor Chun. I brought him into the study and handed him the note and USB drive. Jiang Ling's expression gradually turned serious. For Professor Chun to write must deliver. This must be extremely serious. He packed up the USB drive, then looked out the half-open curtain. His gaze suddenly sharpened. My heart tightened. I followed his line of sight. Outside, a few twisted zombies were hunched over, feasting on the body of the security guard. I could even hear the sound of chewing. Jiang Ling's expression turned grim. He stepped forward and gently drew the curtain shut, leaving only a small gap to observe outside. There aren't many zombies in this area. They must have been attracted by the blood. In the living room, Xiaobai was locked in a staring contest with Charles. Charles looked alert and tense, baring his teeth, ready to strike. Charles, sit. Jiang Ling called out softly. Charles obediently sat down, but kept staring at Xiaobai without blinking. Jiang Ling glanced at Xiaobai thoughtfully, but didn't say anything. He quickly shared his plan with us. My house is also in this neighborhood, but still a bit far. When I came over, I only encountered 2 zombies on the road. But now, there are 4 zombies wandering in your yard. Getting out won't be easy, so I'll need your help. Xiaobai was startled when he heard that, and I understood exactly what he was worried about. Everything Xiaobai and I went through in our previous life had become our biggest psychological obstacle when facing the zombies again. But I was desperate to know the truth. That calm aura around my mother kept haunting my mind. I wanted to see her again and ask what on earth was happening in this world. Why were we made to suffer like this? The atmosphere in the living room fell silent for a moment. I broke the silence and spoke up. I'll go to Jiang Ling's house with him. Xiaobai, you stay here at the safe house. Jiang Ling frowned. You don't need to come with me. Just help guide me around the zombies. I calmly replied. I have the right to know the truth too. Xiaobai bit his lip. PP. You can't go. It's too dangerous. We barely survived the zombies the first time. This is about my mother. I can't just ignore it. His expression was torn. Then he said, then I'll go too. Xiaobai, it's not that I don't want you involved. You had the courage to save me from the jaws of death. I know for sure you can handle zombies. But we need someone to stay behind, to back us up. What if we encounter danger and need to come back quickly? Without someone here, we might not make it inside in time. I looked into his eyes seriously and entrusted him with guarding the house. His eyes were still filled with worry, but I could clearly feel his body had relaxed a little. Xiaobai gave a soft nod and opened his mouth. You must come back safely. Once the plan was finalized, Jiang Ling and I stepped out of the house and into the yard. I turned around. Xiaobai was standing by the second-floor window, looking at us with deep concern. It was already 4 p.m. The dark clouds had slowly cleared. The slanting rays of sunset broke through and poured down, yet it still couldn't warm the cold, hard ground. Centered on the courtyard gate, at roughly the 10 o'clock position, a voice came through the earpiece. Xiaobai's. 2 zombies at 3 o'clock. 3 total. As I was wondering. Jiang Ling calmly said, there were 4 originally. One might be hiding in a blind spot. Be careful. I nodded. Then Xiaobai's voice came through again. Pippi, get ready. On my mark. A drone appeared at the window, buzzing as it flew out into the yard. Then suddenly, a loud, rhythmic piece of music blasted through the area. It wasn't too loud, but enough to draw zombies sensitive to sound. Zombies began gathering toward the drone. Xiaobai updated us through the earpiece. Jiang Ling and I quietly opened the courtyard gate. I could hear the pounding of my own heart, almost louder than the terrifying screeches of the zombies. I remembered the moment we stepped through the gate. 3 twisted zombies to the right were growling hungrily, lurching toward the source of the sound. They haven't seen you. Stay cautious, said Xiaobai, though he tried to keep his voice steady. A hint of tension still slipped through. Jiang Ling gestured to me. He stepped forward first, surveying the area. I gripped my axe tightly, my palms slightly slick with sweat, just as I was about to step out. Watch your left. A strange growl suddenly echoed from our left. Jiang Ling's face changed instantly. A zombie hidden who knows when in the flower bed sprang at us in a full assault. Jiang Ling raised his axe and swung down in reflex. But it was too close. He was too late. The blade only severed one arm. The zombie, unfazed by pain, kept charging forward, and because of the commotion he made, the other 3 zombies, originally chasing the music, also turned around and came charging toward us in a frenzy. In that instant, just as the zombie on the left was about to bite into Jiang Ling, I seized the moment and swung my axe down with all my strength. The zombie dropped to the ground instantly. Without turning back, I ran toward the house. The other 3 zombies closed in within seconds. My mind froze completely. The stench in the air coiled like a snake, slipping treacherously into my nostrils, bringing me back to my previous life, to that moment of despair on the rooftop. I froze in place instantly. PP, Jiang Ling shouted loudly. He stepped forward to shield me, swinging his axe wildly to block the zombies' approach. But he was outnumbered. The zombies quickly closed in on him. Suddenly, a powerful bark rang out. Charles bolted from the door like lightning, pouncing and knocking a zombie flat to the ground. Xiaobai followed right behind, swinging his shovel and smashing it onto the zombie's head. Striking with all his might, the situation instantly turned. Jiang Ling's pressure was suddenly lifted. He lunged forward, and at that moment I also broke free from fear. Gripped my axe tightly and raised it high, as if lifting the fire burning in my heart. With the last zombie falling, it was all finally over. The clouds cleared completely. The blood-red sunset split the world in two. Half in light, half in shadow. I collapsed to the ground. Xiaobai crouched down fearfully, grabbing the sleeve of my shirt. Charles sat beside us, calm but alert. Jiang Ling took a deep breath, but the air was thick with blood. He choked on it, and couldn't help but cough several times. The courtyard echoed with sharp sounds. Jiang Ling reached his hand out to me. "Come on, let's clean up the zombies outside, or they'll attract more." "Okay," I nodded. Just as I was about to get up, Xiaobai pulled me up before I could. He shot a glare at Jiang Ling. "Pee-pee almost got hurt." Jiang Ling rubbed his nose. "I wasn't acting." "Forget it. I can't be bothered arguing with a brat like you," he said, then turned and walked out, and started dragging the zombie corpses toward a shaded slope nearby, then pushed them down. Charles wagged his tail and followed behind. I grabbed Xiaobai's hand and smiled at him. "See? I'm fine. Cleaning up the zombies is for our own safety too. Come on, let's go help." Although Xiaobai still didn't like Jiang Ling, he still picked up his weapon and helped me clean up the battlefield. "Oh, you came too?" Jiang Ling said sarcastically without even looking up. Xiaobai completely ignored him. He and I silently dragged corpses and tossed them down the slope. Only then did I realize the slope was very steep, overgrown with shrubs and tall grass. You couldn't see where the bottom of the slope was. All I could hear was the sound of corpses and rocks tumbling down. The noise echoed for quite a while. Looks like Jiang Ling had surveyed the area thoroughly before knocking on the door. An hour passed in the blink of an eye. During that time, a zombie came attracted by the smell and was swiftly taken out by Jiang Ling. Once everything was cleaned up, it was already getting dark. Dusk settled like a river. I knew just how dangerous it could get at night. So I asked Jiang Ling to stay the night and go retrieve the data tomorrow. He looked at the sky, seemingly in thought. "Is there a reason?" I asked. "Like zombies becoming more sensitive to human movements at night or something?" I thought for a moment and explained. Anyone who's been chased by zombies knows. At night, you can't see clearly, and you're more likely to run into danger. Jiang Ling chuckled at that. He didn't dwell on the issue anymore, and rechecked the courtyard wall and the front gate installation, then called Charles over to help us finish building the shelter. A terrifying and exhausting day finally came to an end. The moment I stepped inside, my heart finally felt some peace. That night, we had hot pot together. Bright red chilies floated on the surface of the soup, flaming and vibrant, so appetizing, and so full of hope. The next morning, when Xiaobai and I woke up, Jiang Ling was already suited up in the living room. I patted Xiaobai's head and reminded him to be careful while staying home alone. "Wait for us to come back." Xiaobai nodded firmly. "Don't worry, I don't know if it was just me, but I felt like the air had grown heavier." "Be careful," Jiang Ling whispered. I silently gripped my weapon tighter. After yesterday's crisis, I was no longer paralyzed by fear of the zombies. Instead, I had gained a sliver of courage to face them, which, to me, was a huge shift. But my alertness toward them had not diminished. If anything, I was more on guard, because I knew with my current physical strength, facing them head-on would mean certain death. Apocalypse survival rule: run if you can. Fortunately, maybe the goddess of luck was watching over us. On the way to Jiang Ling's house, we didn't run into any major danger. When we reached the front of his house, the door was surprisingly wide open. And when we saw the scene inside, we both froze. Jiang Ling's home was a complete mess. His expression turned grim. The curtains were tightly drawn. The room was dim and dark. He strode across the cluttered living room, grabbed the grey curtains with both hands, and yanked them open on the wall beside the window. Red words were written. "Don't trust them." I instinctively took a step back. "Them? Who are they, Jiang Ling?" He stared silently at the bloody words on the white wall, then turned and strode toward me. My heart skipped a beat. I quietly tightened my grip on the axe, but Jiangling simply brushed past me and entered the room behind me. I heard the sound of things being rummaged through. Soon after, he came out holding a thick sealed bag. Thankfully, Director Chen was right after all. He muttered to himself. This guy really was hiding something from us. What exactly is going on? I asked. He gave me a long look and said seriously, we'll talk when we get back. This place isn't safe. Jiangling seemed to notice my hesitation and softened his tone slightly. You don't trust me. But don't you trust Professor Chen either? Though I still had many questions. It clearly wasn't the right time to ask them. We returned to the safe house. Xiaobai frowned when he saw us, his eyes full of concern. I took a moment, then turned to Jiangling and said, it's time for you to tell us the truth now. He took a thick stack of documents from his bag and a laptop. He shrugged slightly. This is everything, he said. To be honest, this whole thing is very complicated and very dangerous. Are you sure you want to get involved? Xiaobai and I exchanged glances. Will it cost us our lives? He asked. Xiaobai's wish had always been to survive. So I squeezed his hand gently and said, Xiaobai, if you and I join in. Xiaobai immediately agreed. PP definitely wants to know the truth. You're the one who brought me here, who helped me survive safely. I won't let you face danger alone. That's not what I meant. Xiaobai, everyone has the right to choose. You don't have to choose this path because of me. I already said I'm in. He cut me off. Wherever you are, I'll be there. Jiangling placed both hands on the back of the sofa and said, if you're not joining, don't take supplies. Shut up! Xiaobai and I shouted in unison. A moment later, Jiangling opened the laptop. I wasn't really lying to you guys. I truly am Professor Chen's student, and also his research assistant. As for the zombie virus outbreak, I honestly didn't know in advance. But Professor Chen did take on a research project this past year. It involved a virus that attacks the host's nervous system. To put it simply, it works similarly to rabies. Given the current situation, I suspect that's the foundation of the zombie virus. Were you involved in that research? To be precise, I was part of the non-core studies. I mainly handled virus transmission testing and host reaction experiments, as well as data recording. I wasn't involved in the higher-level roles. I opened my mouth in shock. Then what about my mom? Jiangling gave me a deep look. Professor Chen was part of the core team, although I had expected it. Hearing it from Jiangling still left a sting. Professor Chen was a core participant in the research. Even though I had mentally prepared for this, when I heard it come from Jiangling's mouth, it still hit me. I couldn't help the pain in my chest. For a moment, aside from the soft sound of keystrokes, a strange silence filled the entire living room. Jiangling opened the USB drive. All the files appeared on screen, and I saw a line of text that stood out sharply. Isn't that the company that does tons of charity work? Jiangling lowered his eyes. Yes, Apocalypse Biotech. They're the official virus development unit. I silently turned to Xiaobai. At that moment, he was staring blankly at the information on the screen, completely stunned. Xiaobai was one of the many university students, just one among them, by Apocalypse Biotech. The remaining data in the files was beyond our comprehension. Jiangling picked up the computer and glanced around the room with hesitation. Professor Chen didn't leave behind any experimental equipment. I led him to my mom's room on the second floor. Based on the contents of the USB drive, Jiangling easily unlocked the door code. The room was pitch black. He fumbled around and turned on the light. As our vision cleared, something unexpected appeared, and startled me into stepping back. At the far end, a pale white zombie was chained tightly to an operating table. The moment it saw light, it suddenly widened its eyes, and began to struggle violently. Looking around the room, Besides the surprising zombie ... Every kind of experimental device imaginable was present. It was practically ... A full-fledged zombie research lab. After a moment ... I turned and left the room. I'll leave this to you then. I walked into the living room. But Xiaobai was nowhere in sight. Back in the bedroom. He was curled up under the blanket. Xiaobai. I called his name softly. He lifted his head. His eyes filled with exhaustion, having endured so much suffering in our past life. I knew he deeply hated those who created the apocalypse. As for my mother, his feelings were complicated, but he knew I was in more pain than him. So he wouldn't show it in front of me. Apocalypse Biotech. Had sponsored Xiaobai through countless difficult times. He often told me he was grateful to them. So when he found out, Apocalypse Biotech was behind the zombie virus research, he was bound to fall into emotional turmoil. I sat beside him in silence. I sat with him in silent companionship. PP, why? He asked. His voice was soft. My mother's image flashed through my mind. I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. In the end, I heard my own voice echo in the room. I don't know the answer either. This terrifying virus ... that plunged us into endless fear. Pierced our hearts. With an inexplicable sharpness. But once, the chaos began to make some sense. The days passed by one after another. Jiang Ling spent all his days in the lab. It seemed the research was progressing. During that time, besides dragging me on morning runs, for fitness, Xiaobai used materials at home. To reinforce the safe house, like installing electric fences on the walls. We also found some mini cameras in the house. And installed them in every corner of the safe house. The three of us took turns monitoring every night. These cameras increased our chances of early danger detection while resting in our rooms. Zombies sometimes wandered near the safe house ... but posed no real threat. The main purpose of the surveillance was defense against humans. Our supplies were enough to last 2 years, even if zombies still roamed after that ... They single quotes according to Jiang Ling. With my mom's research data, ... he could develop a cure within 3 months. And in the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. Jiang Ling excitedly ran out of the lab. ... holding the zombie virus antidote. He exclaimed joyfully, I did it. I really did it. Xiaobai and I looked at each other. ... and smiled. Humanity finally had hope. And this time, ... my best friend and I both survived in the bedroom.